All right, so now we've got it official. Hello, happy Sunday. And I did not look to see where all the planets were today. So let's just for kicks, take a look at the moon. Moon chart. Sun is at 26 degrees, 51 minutes. No, that's my sun's chart. I knew that couldn't be right. 27 degrees, 44 minutes of Pisces. The moon is waxing at 5 degrees, 47 minutes of Cancer. So very watery indeed. And where's Mars? Mars is at 26 degrees on the nose of Aquarius. Okay, that's a good place. Anything in Aries? Yes, we have Mercury, the North Node, and Chiron still in Aries. So, how is everybody?
Oh, pretty good. I had a pretty good week because I was off. So I was like, yeah, vacation time, right? And just visit with my daughter and time for me and all that good stuff. So I kind of like that. So how about you?
Me, I've been having an interesting week, to say the least.
Okay.
I picked my little Be Calm
Oh, that's nice.
espresso cup because my Mars and my Aries are definitely acting up. And so I figured I'd call in the opposite energy of that calm Libran vibe to keep me somewhat toned. Ayana, how about you?
This is a good week. I am never where I'm supposed to be. I forgot about today. So I'm driving back home, but it's been a good week. Nobody has stressed me out. So far, so good. So far, so good.
Yay. All right. Okay. So let's get to the PowerPoint. Now, I found out, being that my technology is being a pain in the butt, that I actually can do PowerPoints online. Now, my husband loves Google apps. I'm not a fan, but I did find out that I could do Microsoft online. So I have the PowerPoint there. So I'm going to hit the play button. So I've never done this before. This is a new one for me.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. However, I do need to, on the Zoom, hit where's share? Share screen. I'm just gonna hit the whole screen because let's please God let this work.
Well, I see something coming up.
Okay.
That's a good sign.
Uh-huh. Oh God, please let this work. That's all I know. Where's the PowerPoint? Let's allow the cookies just in case. And let me get rid of everything else. There it's opening.
Oh, yeah.
But where's the actual? There we go. Okay. Are you guys seeing it?
I see
Full
it.
screen?
I see it. Yeah, full screen.
I see it too.
Great. What I don't see are your beautiful faces. So I like to have, I'm not seeing any of us, but all right. As long as you guys can see this and we can go through it, and I'm going to hope that when you both speak, I'll get to see you. All right, so here we are. Just a quick review from this. This slide pertains to what was supposed to be last week, reviewing the elements. So since we kind of did that, I'm going to skip over it. But unless you have any feedback that you want to share, if you had an opportunity to work more in depth with any of the elements that were particularly important for you to work with, or especially fire, since of course we did start unofficially with Aries last week. Anything either one of you would like to share?
The only thing I could think of really is that in terms of fire, it was a vacation week for me. So then I was kind of having a chance to just take a pause and think about what I wanted to do and then just do it, like, so there was no real structure per se as, a regular routine. So it was sort of like just relaxing and, whatever came to mind of, oh, I want to do this. Okay, I'm going to do this. So it was kind of that kind of week.
So you allowed for the fiery inspiration to come up if it motivated you to do something or not. So it sounds like motivation.
Yeah, like just
Fire.
totally free to do whatever I felt like doing. Like, so yeah.
Okay, cool. As you can see, I'm also simultaneously trying to find your pictures. I can't see either
Like,
one of
where
you.
are they? Because it's funny, I can see you and Ayana, but
Very interesting. Hide name, show video panel. Let's try. Oh, there we go. Found it. There we go. There we go. Ayana, anything you wanted to share about the elements from last week?
I would just say that I've been slightly more organized, just slightly, ever so slightly. So I feel like that could be contributed to fire energy for sure.
Okay.
Not just so much all over the place.
That and maybe that also sounds a little bit like Earth.
Oh yeah, true. That's true too. Maybe a little bit of both. But definitely it's been like sunshine, no rain clouds for me. Like just my disposition has been very sunshiny.
nice.
Okay, nice, cool. All right. I myself have been trying to find my way between water and fire. So there have been emotions and a sort of nebulousness, not nebulousness, but that soft, lacking edge kind of thing, and butting up against the edge itself of fire, especially the last couple days. So yeah, going through it just along you guys. So of course, have your charts out. If you don't, please do pull them up, because I've prepared a slide that we go over everything in your charts, similar to what we did last week, and looking at each one of your charts and identifying everything. And what we're going to be identifying, of course, is the first celestial archetype, made up of, for example, the ascendant, the rising sign, and that begins the entire wheel. This particular slide is just to once again point out the pieces that you're going to see on the handout that I sent to you. And if you haven't memorized these things yet, again, as I have mentioned before, at the very least, since you want to work with other people, start with memorizing the symbols for each one of the signs and for each of the planets. And I mean, it's no different than learning what the A and the B and the C looks like, right? So that's going to be really helpful. And again, as I think I mentioned it, I color code everything. So you'll note that anything you see in red belongs to fire, the green is earth, blue is water, and I don't have any air planets, but it's kind of like a goldenrod color. Any questions on the format of the chart?
Nope, not at this time.
No.
Okay. Go on. So again, we're just going to do a quick review. So if this part feels repetitive, that's why I'm going to go, really quick. And I believe I've already uploaded all of this into the forum so that if you wanted to write it in your journal, you can. But the basics in the chart, it's all based first of all, I believe on the elements themselves. And if you understand the function of the elements, then you've already got a huge chunk of astrology down. And as we also discussed in last week and in the intro, all of the elements blend and interact with each other in different forms, like fire and air can be wonderful because air fans those flames and gives you a wonderful campfire, but too much air on fire can certainly create a sense of fire going out of control and create massive fires and forest fires, etc. Same thing with earth and water. It's wonderful, but if there's too much of the water element in the earth, and we get mudslides. So it's really important to extrapolate how that might show up in your lives according to the combinations that you have in your natal chart. Then modes are the way that the energy moves. So we have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Are either or both of you familiar with the modes?
I am.
Okay, good. Ayana, is this something that you've worked with before, or is this new to you?
I couldn't push the mute button. Sorry about that. I am mildly familiar with it, somewhat familiar.
Okay, so this is yet another piece that, like the elements, will become increasingly more important with time as you deepen your understanding of each of the signs. I'll have more to speak about this towards the end of today's class, so I'll just kind of go ahead because I'll have a better example there. And polarity is if the sign is charged up as yin, feminine, or yang, masculine. Has nothing to do with sexuality. It has everything to do with just positive and negative charge. Whether it's something that the way that the masculine, the pure masculine energy works, which is a thrusting energy versus the accepting feminine yin energy. And of course, around the wheel, this will also go masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, all the way around. So of course, starting with Aries can only be very, very yang, and then it goes in succession. So again, that's I think a very important piece, but not as obvious as, say, the elements are. And then we have the division of the wheel itself according to the hemisphere or the quadrants. I will put up a couple pictures from some of the books that I think are very important, showing graphics on this. But the upper, if you have a number of planets in the upper hemisphere, you are more daylight, so to speak. It's more of a extroverted energy versus a lot or most of the planets on the bottom half of the wheel, which would be more of an inner focus. And so this is also something worth noting. And then what we're doing is studying in the course the sort of astrological alphabet, going through what's called the zip code. Now, ironically, I've never actually read Zipporah Dobbin's book. That's where this zip code idea comes from. And it's a generalization to put the sign, the planet, and the house together. They don't necessarily mean the same thing, but they are resonant, of course. But for the simplification of teaching and learning, it works. It'll be up to each of you to deepen everything as you go on in time with your studies. And the last piece, or second to last, I'm not sure, are the decanates, which give the flavor in our charts. Or as my teacher, Jeffrey Brock, used to say, it's like the chart is a soup. And the more of these ingredients that you utilize in your interpretation, these are all kind of flavors, but particularly the decanates. So what that looks like if you're not familiar with it, is that, of course, each sign is 30 degrees, right? So we've got 360 degrees. Each sign is further divided into 10-degree sections. So you've got, let's say, Aries is going to be, the first 10 degrees of Aries is its own pure energy. You know, it's like Aries, Aries, double Aries. Then you have the second 10 degrees of Aries, and that takes on a little bit of the flavoring of the next fire sign. So that would be Aries with a flavor packet of Leo. So that's a slightly different Aries than the pure Aries. And then you've got the last 10 degrees of Aries, which will then be flavored by the third fire sign, which is Sagittarius. So it's Aries with a flavoring of Sagittarius. So you kind of get a sense how, you know, people will say, oh, I'm an Aries, but I'm not like that all the time. Well, first of all, duh, you know, you've got everything else in the chart that's going on. But it's also, if you look at these decanates, it will give you a different sense, whether Aries, 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 Libra, or Aries, Sagittarius. And those divisions are based on the elements. So this is why the elements are so important to memorize. You've got to get down. What are your fire signs? What are your earth signs, air, and water? And as you do that, then you can start adding these flavor packets to your interpretation. Does that make sense? Or do you have any questions or comments about that?
That makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to associate it that way, like you're saying, flavoring. That's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool. Oh, I did have one more. And then, of course, the aspects, which I'll have another slide later on, are the mathematical relationships. There are major aspects, of course, and then there are some minors. And like I said, we'll talk about that later. Another one to review. Did you notice if I put this up in the group for you guys? I hope I did. If I didn't,
I can't recall. I think you did.
okay. It's just a handy one to jot down in your journals, because as we study your charts and we go week to week, this is how I break it down. We discuss the sign, the planet, the house, and then I will bring in the aspect as well. But I always encourage you to see yourself at the center of that wheel, in control of everything, from the space of being a divine child, right? So each one of the houses represents an area of life. And it isn't just that your chart stays static for the rest of your life. As you live your life, of course, we have the transits, the continual movement of the planets through time over your blueprint, and it activates, of course. So this is what we look at, is how any particular planet is activating any of your natal planets. So you've got, this is the language goes, you've got transiting planets and you've got your natal planets. And something to keep in mind, if you're also not familiar with it, is you've got your natal chart. That's the one you were born with, right? And then you've got your progressed chart. And there are various ways of calculating progressed charts. So as the word implies, we progress the wheel through time. And this shows how you are developing over the course of your life. You were never going to get rid of your natal chart. That is always in play. But we can work with your progressed chart, with your solar arc charts, with your solar return charts, with your Mars return charts. There's like endless options of working, but it's always based on your natal. And the number one place to start is with that, understanding yourself through the lens of your natal chart. And then as far as current time, or past events that have been significant in your life, for example, when you got married, when you got divorced, when you had a child, when you graduated college, whatever it may be, you can plot out a natal chart for that event and plot it around your own natal chart to see what was activated in your psyche and life during that particular event. So we look at it present, we look at it past, and then we look at it, of course, the future. And of course, in chart comparison, also looking at it with other people in our lives. Oops, let me go back up. So this is another one of the review slides. The one that we're going to work on today is the first house that we also touched on last week. It relates to how other people see me. It's my image, the way that I present myself to the world, my outer personality, not my true self, but my outer personality. It's our filter to the world, and it's being able to announce, here I am, world. As we are born into the world, we're born into that first house. The ascendant is calculated according to your very first breath of life. So this is why I call it the house of here I am, world, right? So of course the others, and I believe I put this one up in the group forum, just so that you'll know that these are key concepts and you can utilize this week to week, because even though we are studying the first house today, we're also looking at Mars, right, as the natural ruler of the first house. And you may have Mars, but in, say, I think one of you does, in the 9th house. So you're going to want the little cheat sheet here and say, oh, okay, I am motivated by whatever sign. Wait, you both have Mars and Aries, now that I remember. I'm motivated to break new ground. One of you has it in the 9th house, in higher education, or in my philosophical and spiritual pursuits, quest, etc. So this you'll want to have handy. Make sense so far?
Yep.
And I already discussed this. That the astrological transits trigger and activate aspects of ourselves. The inner planets are, even though the sun and the moon are called planets, they're not. They're the luminaries, as an aside. But for astrological languaging, we just refer to all of them as planets, with the exception of the asteroids. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and I include the Earth, are the inner planets. So this is what's closest to us. These are the personal planets. So these are the ones, since they're all closer to the sun, to the center of our being, to our heart, that we know and understand better about ourselves. Then we have the planets that start moving slower, that are called the outer planets. Well, that would be Jupiter and Saturn. And Jupiter and Saturn, because they're outer planets, they start to shift in energy. They're longer cycles. Jupiter, of course, is a 12-year cycle. Saturn is a 28-year cycle. So they're a little more transpersonal. They have a more profound effect on our evolutionary growth. But it's the galactic ambassadors, which are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, that are the outermost of the planets, that are really slow and really show up in more of a generational shifting of consciousness. But anybody that's had, say, a strong Pluto transit, even though it's out there and astronomers have said, oh, Pluto's not a planet, the fact is, if you've had a Pluto transit, you know what that's like, and it feels deep to us. So, take everything that we say with a grain of salt, and everything depends upon one's sensitivity and the particular experiences that we go through. So once again, the planet that we're going to work with today is here. It's Mars, the ruler of Aries, and it is the principle of action and energy. And this is just yet another illustration of seeing the innermost planets are here. We move to the outer and then to the galactic out here. Oh, and the reason that I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of this slide is because same as with the houses, even though we're studying Mars, the fact is that we're going to look at, do you have any planets in Aries, the sign in question today? Well, you're going to want to know a couple of the themes for, let's say you have I don't know, Venus and Aries. You're going to want to know that you have this impulsive love nature. Maybe we're combining the key ideas of Aries impulsivity with Venus, the love principle, together to understand that in ourselves. Now this one's from my moon coaching, this particular slide, but again, it demonstrates the idea, whether we're talking about each new moon throughout the course of the astrological year, but it could also be any one of the planets. It could be the solar transit. But we get an opportunity to play with each one of the signs according to the transits of any particular time frame. So we may not have anything, say, in Gemini, no planets in Gemini. We may not have any planets in the third house, which is the natural Gemini house. But does that mean that we don't get to communicate and teach others, about some area in which we are experts? No, of course not. You have the new moon in Gemini, you get to go out and focus on that for a little while. Or if there's a powerful, let's say, Jupiter is transiting for the collective in Gemini, then you also have an opportunity to work with that energy. Again, Gemini. Does this make sense?
It does, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whoops. All right, I'll let it go. I forgot to take the animations off on some of them, I think. So we're beginning with Aries. We're beginning at the beginning with Aries, and we go around the wheel. And just again, just simple key words that sort of capture the essence of each one of these archetypes. So last week, do you remember how I was trying to explain how it was the new moon in Pisces, which is this sense of oneness and everything is dissolved? And yet here I was trying to start a new class and I had technology mess me up by not having, the PowerPoint not work, and beginning a new class with the next sign, Aries. So this sense of how do we combine the last with the first, Pisces with Aries. And this is a slide that I've always had and always loved because it perfectly, to my eyes, demonstrates that sense of that liminal portal, that liminal edge between the last and the first, the ending and the beginning, the sense of there's this dissolving of everything that's individuated, and we dissolve into that allness or that nothingness. And from that allness and nothingness, which is Pisces in the end, we are born into this new world as an individual with number one, Aries. So this is something that's really important to keep in mind. at least for me as a Pisces, it really helps if you have planets in Pisces to understand that we can still individuate, we can still come out of that hidden, tucked away, allness, and have a sense of self. It's from the selfless to the self. And it's particularly important right now because we are ending the old astrological year, right? Because we're in the Pisces month, and we are about to begin a new astrological year, what we call the real new year. So the real new year begins when the sun hits 0 degrees of the zodiacal wheel, which of course is 0 degrees of Aries, the beginning point. And we're there, spring equinox is, I forgot the exact date. It's either the 20th or the 21st this year. I haven't checked. And that starts it off. That's the 0 point. That's why Aries is so important to grasp, and any projects that you might be thinking of doing, this is the time to begin focusing on it. So whether you work with the zodiac from a solar or a lunar perspective, if it's from the solar, you begin when the sun hits 0 degrees of Aries, 20th or the 21st each year. If you're lunar based, I'm both, then you consider the new year to be the new moon in Aries, which is the first new moon of the zodiacal year. And this year, it is a doozy because we have a major eclipse. It is wild to me how mass media, which if you don't know this about me, you need to know. I do not follow mass media. I do not believe a word that they or any politician says. And I do my own research. I've always gone against the grain. And the reason that I'm saying that is because I am floored with seeing that mass media, who has always demonized astrology and poo-pooed it and made it seem like it's crazy, I've seen posts left and right saying, oh, you need to have, 2 weeks worth of food and all this stuff based on the eclipse. Which is astrology 101. Hello, so this one is a doozy, not because the media says it is, but because the fact of the matter, it is. And so we start this particular new year with this powerful eclipse in Aries. And it does merit looking at that degree in our natal charts. Eclipses are more powerful new or full moon energies because it amplifies that energy. You're going to have a sense of 6 months before, 6 months after, even the influence can be a year prior to a year later. And in ancient times, eclipses were deeply studied by astrologers, ancient astrologers, because it did have major effects on the planet. Anyways, so just you'll want to write those 2 dates down: the spring equinox for the solar astrological new year, and April 8th, April 7th. I know I forgot, for the lunar astrological new year. Okay. Do you either one of you have any plans on going to Texas to see it?
No, actually, no. I'm planning a trip on that new moon, but no, not Texas. Too far. How about you?
I'd love to, but I can't right now. I can't. I'm just gonna. I mean, the ancients used to say, "Don't even look at an eclipse." And now we're selling the glasses and stuff like that. It's kind of wild. But do you guys get the sense from this particular animation of that powerful point between oneness and one?
Yes, very similar. Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's very similar to the little short video that you had us watch with the older man. I can't remember his name, but the
Oh
short
yeah,
video
yeah.
where he
Right.
basically says, you.
Oh, I think you froze.
Yeah.
Oh, Ayana, you froze. I hope we didn't lose her. Oh, there's movement. Okay, good. Sam. Lynn, were you gonna say something too?
I was just gonna mention that the space element, it makes it look limitless, no boundaries. And then you have, like a form, structure, like a confined place. So it's kind of like Pisces is without boundaries, and then you have Aries, which is like the individual, like a form of a kind. So
Exactly. All right. So you'll remember that in the introductory course, I had dedicated the class to Hypatia of Alexandria. And I decided to switch gears. And for this first celestial archetype, I am dedicating to each of you in your particular genius. So that's why I insert your name here, Ayana and Lynn. And of course, I plugged in my precious, beautiful granddaughter. This is Amelia Marie. And, plug in a picture of you in there as this perfect little baby. And that's the beginning point. That's your 0 point, right? Everybody, lots of people talk about the 0 point, and in general, in the sciences. Well, there's the astrological 0 point, and the astrological 0 point for each of you was the moment of your first breath. And when you took that first breath, that's when you shifted from that allness, that ocean of divine allness, which could be exemplified by the Piscean, the Neptunian realm, the 12th house, into here's the Ascendant, the first house, that realm of Aryan, here I am world. And I am here, so I, Lynn, am here. I, Ayana, am here. And I am here for what? You incarnated for a purpose, a reason. And the chart can only be cast accurately with a true birth time. And that birth time is ideally taken from that moment, your first breath. Because even there are people, children, infants that were born that may have taken a minute or seconds or whatever it may have been for that first breath. My son was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his throat. We don't have an exact birth time. It's either exactly 1:30 p.m. or it could have been 1:33, but that first breath is what creates that blueprint for you. So I'll have questions for you to note down in your journal. That's the experiential portion for you to answer these questions. You can answer them from a sense of logic and reason, which is fine, but you may also want to consider, putting on a candle, lighting some incense, going in a sacred space, and really working with the soul in answering these questions. I'd mentioned, and I'll mention again, that the Ascendant in Esoteric Astrology is what is considered as showing you what your soul's purpose is. And if you get that, if you, kind of close your eyes and you imagine yourself in that wonderful womb, whether you got along with your mom or not afterwards, but, imagine that your mother's womb was more like the divine, the cosmic womb, the great mother, the divine, that divine allness. And here you were in these amniotic waters of oneness. And you get that impulse, oh, here I'm ready, your soul knows you're ready. and the timing and everything is set in place. Whether you were cesarean or natural birth, okay, I will add, the moment of your birth is on purpose. There's no buts or ifs about that. However it is that you came through and embodied, it was perfectly designed and timed by your soul. So here you are, and boom, you know that moment, and you come out, and everything that it's all captured in that instant, the entire cosmos, and you've come with a purpose. So there's a sense of divine purpose. There's a soul of being directed by your soul into incarnation. So when we're born, and remember, we're now into that first archetype, okay, guys? In case, I'm sure you know that. So this first archetype has to do with who we were, who we are, what we were born into incarnation to grow and develop into. There's also innocence there, because babies are born innocent. No matter what some religions teach, we are born innocent, and I'll hold to that. But we, of course, also do come with a whole package of patterns. That's what the chart's about, right? So here's this opportunity for you to ask these questions. If you can remember when you were, if your mother's around and you can talk with her, or somebody that was present at your birth, you might want to strike up that conversation to kind of get feedback as to the event, the energy, the field into which you came into life. So you ask these questions. For what reason did your soul choose to incarnate? What creative drive motivates you to journey around the sacred wheel? Because we're actually doing an astrological hero's journey. That's what this movement around the wheel is about. And we start off with that natural Aries, Mars first house. And the key word there is motivation, right? And then how did your soul dress you up in terms of an identity? So one of the key features of this week as we explore this first one is, what is my identity? Who am I? Right? It's about this I. And then answering the questions, what fires me up? How do I show up in my world? And as I said before, who am I? Right? So any thoughts on this one?
I love it. I've never seen someone put it together like this, but it makes so much sense to present it this way, like you said, with a picture of yourself in the center, and then to like branch out. And the questions are very purposeful. Like I love what you've done.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll go really deep with this. That's my intention. Lynn, anything, or should I move on?
I don't know that I'd have too much to say about it, other than it's making me think, even though I'm trying not to think too much, because it's more like to kind of connect with intuition and stuff. So I find it's kind of making the wheels spin a bit on that. So I don't really have any answers per se.
Thank you for saying that. Actually, you mentioned the intuition. People don't necessarily think of Aries, the archetypal Aries, as intuitive. However, it's all new. Oh, my eye is doing a weird thing. Because Aries and this archetype is all new, it doesn't have all the answers, right? There's this big question mark that goes with this one. It's like, okay, and I mentioned this last week, that Aries needs direction. It needs a goal to move towards. That's true about all the fire signs, but particularly with Aries. And any Aries planets that you may each have. So it has to rely on a sense of intuitive there, that intuition is a creative type of intuition. Again, the creativity that goes hand in hand with this very first archetype is something that's not often recognized, but you can't separate intuition and creativity from the first sign. And this will become apparent as you work with it. Oh, I forgot. So we're going to take all those planets that appear to be out there, that's up there, and we cast them on this, to whatever dimensional flat sheet of paper, but it's really all alive. So the more you work with all these home play exercises that I give you, the more alive the astrological components are going to come around inside of you. And for the purposes of genius, that's where I want you to go, is, I hope that you can each recognize your own genius. All right, so this one's my chart. I'm not going to explain my chart. I'm just going to show you what we're going to look at for each of you. So here it is. This is the ascendant, the rising sign, which begins the wheel and the first house. Then we're going to look at where's Aries in terms of house domain. So in my case, I have Sagittarius rising. I have Aries on my 4th house cusp. And then we're going to look at what planets do you have in Aries. I have Saturn. Speaking of 0 degrees, I literally have Saturn at the 0 degrees, and Venus. And I think one of you has Venus in Aries too. We're going to look at the natural first house and see, well, do you have any planets posited in the first house? I do. I have the moon in there. Oops, I had them out of order. And then we're going to look at where is Mars. I have Mars in Scorpio up in the 10th. And, are there any planets conjunct Mars? Because that will further amplify that Martian drive. Oh, interesting. I think I duplicated efforts here. So same thing. So here are your charts. And I thought I would do this first so that you can make note of things. I'm sure you guys pretty much know quite a bit of your charts already from my understanding. But as I present the slides, I'd like for you to, if you've printed out your chart, scribble all over it. As a matter of fact, from here on end, print out multiple copies of your chart so that you can get colored pens. I highly suggest colored pens and markers, highlighters, sticky notes, whatever you need, and scribble all over everything. Okay, it's the only way you're going to learn. They didn't teach it to me that way. I learned the old-fashioned way, memorization, and that sucks. So to me, it has to be experiential. All right. So for some reason, the charts came out pretty pixelated, no matter how many times I tried different versions of it, but I think it's still pretty visible. You guys can see the planets okay?
Yes, and we're able to zoom the screen for ourselves as well, too.
I didn't know that. Wow. Cool.
Once you put it up there, then we can do the whole finger zoom thing.
Okay. All right. I didn't know. So here we're going to look at Aries in each of your charts. And you see now the next thing that comes up, I've animated it. I'm so excited about all these little animation things. So Aries rules Lynn's 11th house, right? And Ayana's 9th house. So remember how I said to keep that other sheet handy? So you're going to want to interpret over the course of this week, first of all, identify what Aries energy is like for you. Then you're going to say, well, I've got Aries on my 11th house of of groups and organizations and astrology, yada yada, and I've got it on my 9th house of higher learning, higher education, travel, etc. And so you'll want to start plugging in the words that are more meaningful to you personally. And we'll say, okay, well, what planets are in Aries and Lin's chart? And we see Mars in its own sign of rulership, Saturn in Aries, and the North Node in Aries. So we have that stellium in Aries. And remember, stellium is when there are 3 or more points in a sign or in a house. Okay. And then we have in Ayanas, we have again Mars and Aries in its own sign of rulership. So both of you very powerful Martians for sure. And Venus and Aries and the South Node in Aries. So remember last week I said you have reversed nodes. So it would be interesting to see what notes you exchange. And I really encourage you. I did see that, Lynn, and I haven't had a chance to answer your posts in the group, because your sharing is going to help each other to learn about yourselves, especially with something like this, you know, and that's a pretty, that's very strong. It's so amazing to me that you're both in this class and it's just the 2 of you, and look at these points that are conjunct each other, and I have my own planets in there too.
It's kind of funny. I agree.
Yeah.
Kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
All right. So then Mars, and you see I underline Mars here, and it'll tell you written out Mars and Aries in the 10th house for Lynn, and there's the symbol for Mars, so it's easy to identify. And then for Ayana, it says Mars and Aries in the, it's the 8th, yeah, hers is in the 8th house. Okay. And oh, there's a little, so there's Mars. We looked at Mars. Then we look at the first house. In both of your charts, you don't have any planets in that first house. But when we look at the ascendant, in Lynn's case, we see the ascendant is Cancer, which is ruled by what? The moon, right? So we go and find where the moon is, and we have the moon in Aquarius. So what does that mean for Lynn? That means that you're the navigator of your life, so to speak, the captain of your ship. If we see the wheel as a ship, we would say that the moon is the captain. The moon is in charge of driving your ship. Do you follow that?
Yep. Sounds good.
Where's my water? and for Ayana, Leo is the ascendant. So what planet rules Leo? This is
the sun.
Yeah, there you go. And there's the sun, and sun in Taurus. So, man, I cannot wait to see what happens by the time we get to the end of the class with you two. In terms of, it's just ironic, the opposite nodes, right? But then you also have the sun and the moon, the luminaries, with the Leo and Cancer. Oh my gosh, as ascendant, a soul purpose. So it's very exciting to see you guys in here. I can't wait. I'm going to learn from you. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go along, is each of your soul purpose are guided, one by the moon, the other by the sun. So throughout your life, it's important to track, in Lynn's case, track the moon's movement. Does it mean that you can't track the moon's movement, Ayana? Of course not. Just like vice versa, the sun too. But the moon will be particularly pivotal if you pay attention to it. And the sun, same thing for you, Ayana, particularly important if you choose to work with it consciously. One simple thing you can do as you are deepening your studies is track the lunar and solar cycles. That's the basic for everything in astrology anyways, in my opinion. So of course the moon changes signs every 2.5 days and the sun every 30 days. So what you do is you watch as either the sun or the moon go around the chart, around your wheel, day to day, month to month. Do either one of you work with the lunar cycle, the lunar phases?
I work with the lunar phase typically, and of course I acknowledge the sun, but I didn't know that it's in my chart, and I should probably be working with the sun. Maybe, I wouldn't, maybe I would be like more like swimming with the current instead of, against it, sort of a thing. So this is eye-opening for me because I'm always like lunar, mama moon, this and that, everything else. So I'm like, I need to switch.
Not switch, just add it to your repertoire, to your spiritual toolbox. Very important. And you do have a prominent moon, you absolutely do. So that's not surprising to hear, but it is very important in your case to bring in that solar fire, literally solar fire, and to have a deep connection with your sun sign Taurus, and I had looked up Lynn's solar return chart during that one class that you weren't with us, but I'd be happy to next week, when we do Taurus, I'll look up what the date is for yours, since you're a Taurus and it's coming up, right, in a couple of months.
Perfect.
Okay. Lynn, what about you? Do you work with the sun or the moon?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it working with it, but like I'm more where I'm trying to just see where the planets are per se. And I've been paying more attention to the moon as I've been learning a little bit more, just to see what sign it's in and what planet it might be connecting. Because what I'll do is, if I have a real big day for some reasons, a lot of stuff's going on, I'm like, pull out the chart, where are the planets or whatever. And so, I mean, the moon might be hitting some sensitive spots, or maybe I didn't think of it as sensitive until I saw the chart and I go, well, oh, maybe that's sensitive or whatever. But I'm kind of starting to watch it a little bit more and pay attention and check it and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
starting, yeah.
All right. Well, my invitation to both of you would be to definitely start at least working with the new moon, because of course the new moon is when both the sun and the moon are conjunct, right? They're in their sacred union. And if you just start with that, when I came up with moon coaching decades ago, and now they're in, and I started the process of trademarking it, and they ran out of money. Anyways, at that time, very few people worked with a new moon. Very few people. Everybody and all the calendars were, oh, the full moon, the full moon. And I'd be sitting there like, that's the culmination point. Hello, that's not what you set your intentions. That's not when you start a project. That's when the moon is shining in her fullness and the light is shining down on everything, and everything that, that's the birth. That's when you've given birth, so the actual most important time in the solunar cycle is to me the new moon, because that is the new beginning. In fact, the new moon energy is very similar to the Aries and the first archetype energy, because it's a new beginning energy, because it's the seed that is planted. Just like with Aries, it's that seed, that's coming out and bursting forth. So just something to keep that in mind. But I very much believe that both of you need to track the sun and the moon, especially, well, in Lynn's case, yours is easier in a way because the moon comes around every month we have a lunar birthday, just like we have a solar birthday once a solar year. We have a lunar birthday, or what's called a lunar return, once a month. Month, right? We get the word month from moon. So at the very least, notice when the moon returns to Aquarius every month and see if anything, if you're picking up on anything. You know, moon coaching, to me, the reason I created it was so that we could become conscious creators of working with natural cycles. So yeah, I think it behooves us to learn about that and work with it, especially in both your cases. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. So write things down as we move through, see what comes up. So the first house, how others see me, my image, my outer personality, my physical body. This is very important. In medical astrology, the health houses are the first because, again, that's where we come into incarnation. That's when we take that first breath, the soul takes on a body. So that body is shown, the health of it, by according to the first house, sign, planets, and any aspects. Also, the sixth house, because the sixth natural house of Virgo has to do with health. And which is the other one? I'm trying to remember. Well, those are the two primary ones. It'll come to me later, but if you're working on any health or physical issues, those are the two, but primarily the first. And then you can also see it from an esoteric perspective, as I said, the sole purpose. But you can look at the first house and the ascendant as a type of stained glass window. So regardless of everything else that you've got going on in your chart, all these other energies, including your sun sign, shine through this stained glass, so to speak, window, which is the ascendant and the first house. Does that make any sense? Does that help to see it that way?
Mm-hmm.
So the element, the planets, the sign, the house that rules it, the planet that rules it, it will all act as a filter. It colors everything else that's in the chart. Some of the other things in our charts we may not even express necessarily outwardly, and some of them we do, but it's all colored through that filter. All right, so now I'm gonna kind of put together this animation that I created for the wheel. So we have this perfect circle, you're in the middle of that circle. I could have put a picture in the middle on this one too. So we move from, even though it's reversed, usually we look at it, this east is here and right, okay, but because astrology was developed in the northern hemisphere and it's like looking down, everything is flipped when we look at the wheel. That's something that I've always had a hard time understanding, but it is what it is. Okay, so east moves from the left side of the wheel to the right side of the wheel, west. So east is the Aries 0 point. These are all similar energies, right? It's Aries. It's the spring equinox. It's the moment of sunrise. It is the ascendant, whatever is rising up on that horizon point, the ascendant, and it's the new moon energy. So we have that on this side, and then directly across opposite, we have, of course, west, and all of the polarity things to Aries and the new moon and the, etc. So we have Libra to Aries, we have the descendant to the ascendant. So on that horizon point, there are signs that are rising And then on the descendant, the planets and signs are going down. So this is what divides the wheel in our charts and our consciousness between that upper hemisphere, which of course it's kind of like the dome right above us, and that's where we see everything above us. So any planets that we see on the upper half are visible to us. Any planets that are beneath that line are invisible to us. So this is what I mentioned earlier about if you have most planets above the horizon, it could be that you're seen more of as an extrovert, or at the very least, those aspects of your consciousness are more externally expressed. And the ones beneath that line, you may be holding it closer to your chest, so to speak. And then we have the next dividing line, which is from the bottom, which represents north, the summer, midnight, the Immun Coeli, the sign Cancer, and the first quarter moon. And directly opposite that line's not straight, would be south, winter, noon, when the sun is at the noon point directly overhead, the midheaven, the sign Capricorn, and the last quarter moon. So here you have the 4 quadrants. And of course, then I haven't drawn it, but then you would draw in 2 more lines here and 2 more here, and you get the 12 divisions of the zodiac. But these are called the angles of the chart. Whenever you see, let's say you don't have anything in the first house, right? Neither one of you have signs in the first house, planets in the first house. But let's say that you go back in time to plot some of the major moves, relocations you may have made in your life, or major changes of career, or that, structural changes in your life. Or a person may have had a surgery to some structural portion of their body. It could be that the planet Saturn, which rules structure, form, rules, career, crossed over, say, the first house, or it could have been crossing that bottom line down here, north, the bottom of the wheel, because that relates to where you live, your home, right? Let's say you met the love of your life when the planet, either it could have been Venus, maybe a torrid sudden love affair with Uranus crossing over the descendant point, or a major career shift when it went up here. So to understand the 4 angles of the chart is extremely important. To watch for those outer planets that I mentioned, Jupiter and Saturn in particular, over those 4 points, to track life-changing events in your life. And you can do it proactively so that you can set yourself up for it, or you can do it kind of like, looking back and, yeah, I did do such and such when such and such a planet crossed over. So do you see the importance of understanding the angles this way? And then the other thing is that we can see the sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight. So we have timing here. This is timing. We see the new moon, the first quarter moon, the full moon, and the last quarter. So we get another timing process. See, I told you last week. Last week was the fun one with the interactive stuff. This week is more heady. All right. So sacred geometry and the aspects. I've updated this one because, let me show you. When you're ready to move on to other aspects and studies of astrology, here's this book. Oh, it shows up reversed there, doesn't it? Anyway,
No, it's clear. Astro psychology.
yeah, Introduction to
Introduction.
Astropsychology, Dr. Glenn Perry. He was one of my teachers. I quit 2 times with him, but I still love him, even though I disagreed on a bunch of stuff. But he actually, in this book, he does work with astrology from a psychological perspective. That and this one's available on Amazon. His other books are only available on his website, like Depth Analysis of the Natal Chart, Advanced Therapeutic Astrology. And I have marked this book like crazy, although I never finished it. But I believe that the man's a genius. He's an absolute genius in what he did. But he's very outspoken on a lot of topics, and he poo-poos a lot of other astrological studies. Like, he's totally against Vedic, and I'm not a fan of Vedic, but I don't poo-poo it. If it whatever floats your boat, you know, if it works for you, then cool. Tropical works for me. So the reason that I'm bringing it up is because in his book, and I'll just read this one portion if I can find it again real quick. What I was thinking of doing to not spend too much time on this is to take some pictures and post it in the group so that you can study it. But rather than seeing the aspects, which are the mathematical relationships between planets or points in your chart, right? Remember that the aspects are the dialogue between 2 parts of your consciousness, the planets being the actors on the stage. Of memorizing it as, say, a conjunction is 0 degrees separation. So they're together. It's a union of 2 planets. And that means that they are working together with a particular vibration towards a particular goal, right? So you have, let's say, what's a good one? Well, the sun and moon, a new moon, right? Since that has the same energy as Aries. And so the sun, which is a yang, fiery planet, and the moon, which is a very yin, nurturing planet, are working together and bringing their particular energies. Let's say you were born on a new moon in Taurus, in say the 4th house. Well, the sun and the moon, yang and yin, are working together in a very practical, down-to-earth way, Taurus. And what did I say? The 4th house, which is the foundation of the chart. It's your psychological roots, it's your home and family, it's real estate, and it's the physical home, right? So they are working together. And it could look like you're a home builder, you're a contractor, you're an interior designer, you know, these kind of things. Now, what happens if you have, so that's one way of explaining the conjunction. They're working together towards a particular thing according to the sign and house, yada, yada. Well, what he did, and so on and so forth with the other aspects, how he has done it is taken the explanation of the aspects. Let me just read what he says, because I cannot explain it any better than what he does. Where is it? Aspects relate to the quality of relationship between signs. Where is it? The angular relationships, which are the aspects between signs, depict the various ways these drives interact, whether stimulating, constricting, harmonious, conflictual, or complementing. An aspect derives its meaning from the nature of the sign to which it corresponds. So using the conjunction again as an example, which is the 0 degrees. So the two planets will occupy the same degree of the same sign. So generally speaking, this angle has an Aries quality, egocentric, subjective, and spontaneous. Planets that are conjunct one another tend to operate as if they were joined at the hip because they don't see each other, because that's true. With a conjunction, the two planets, you're not seeing each other. You're standing next to each other, right? Which is different, say, than the opposition. You're literally facing the other planet. So it's easier sometimes to dialogue with an opposition. Because they don't see each other, they are like two instruments in a band that, while different, are playing the same notes of the same song, right? Because they're in the same sign and house. In other words, the planets are fused together and thus have a more aggressive, decisive quality. It is like two horses with blinders that are hitched to the same carriage. They are harnessed for the same purpose, are galloping in the same direction, and are moving fast. Thus, the conjunction has a strong, uninhibited, vitalizing quality. So anyways, he goes on to explain how each of the aspects has a similar energy to the signs out of which it is derived from a geometric and mathematical perspective. This may be a bit advanced. I get it. It might be easier to say, well, a conjunction between two planets means they're working together towards some goal. A sextile is when two planets are approximately 60 degrees apart and they have an easy time discussing things and work together. A square, which is a 90-degree angle, is, this is a square. It's literally 90 degrees if you remember your geometry. Those are two planets or more that are having a tough time. They are struggling. So any planets you have in a square relationship are parts of your psyche that are hard, that you really have to work hard at working together. But if you stick with it, with the challenge that it represents, then you will grow and benefit from it. It is said that sextiles and trines, which are the two easy aspects, the 60 and the 120, sometimes people that have a lot of sextiles and trines, everything comes easy to them, but they don't grow. When everything comes easy to you, it's like being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Then do you really grow? I mean, maybe, depends. If you hopefully have some of these other more challenging things like the square, the opposition, or the quincunx. Anyways, I'll post the picture so that you can read this, because I cannot do justice on how he derived these associations with the signs. But it's all born, everything, out of that 0 degrees point, all the other aspects. You will find, as you study astrology, orbs are how close, how tight a conjunction, a square, an opposition may be. So orbs are the two planets that are conjunct exactly 0 degrees, or are they 5 degrees away from each other, or are they 8 degrees? So an orb is how far 2 points will be before you consider or don't consider them to be an exact aspect. Follow? You can nod your head or go no. Or isn't Diana? You are? Okay. There's also applying versus separating. Applying is that it's coming closer to being exact, so it's more powerful, it's got more juice. Separating is that aspect is declining in its energetic force, okay? And it's very similar with the opening and closing. So there it is, the Introduction to Astropsychology by Dr. Glenn Perry. But it is advanced astrology. And yet there's a lot of really solid basic things. He's methodical with the step-by-step process. So I highly encourage you to get his books, at the very least that one. All right, since I don't have a watch and I have no clue what time it is, somebody's gonna have to keep me on track so I can go all night. And I have a lot to get through. All right, so of course we're gonna be studying all of these. So the elements will repeat themselves in a particular way. And again, I highly stress the need to memorize this part. And there's kind of no other way other than memorization. So let's say the fire signs. We're studying Aries. So the other fire signs are Leo and Sagittarius. So they're alike in that they're all fire. So they have a similarity in that sense, all the fire signs, for example. And yet they're also, again, different. Just like when I spoke earlier about how even within Aries, there are 3 kinds of Aries according to the decadent. The first 10 is Aries, Aries, 10 through 20 is Aries, Leo, and then 20 through the 30th degree is Aries, Sagittarius. Well, next you add the modes. Cardinal is an initiating energy. Fixed is a holding pattern, right? Just like the word itself says, it's stabilizing, it's fixed. And the mutable signs are changeable. They shapeshift the energy. So it's kind of like if you see something working in a sequence, the cardinal signs start the energy going, the fixed signs hold it in place, and then the mutables continue to move the energy and bring it back to cardinal. All right, so it's kind of like a spinning wheel. So you have a difference between the 3 fire signs, because Aries cardinal is very much a fiery energy that's you literally I don't have my matchbook with me, but it starts it. Okay, it's that spark. But Leo fixed fire is the candle that's steady. And then let's say Sagittarius, which is mutable fire, is you know, the winds are changing direction and it's about to go off. You know, I'm not saying fire it'll change, it'll go off, but this is another one of those things that to me always felt boring. But again, it's the basic building blocks, because you start to see the differences as they progress through the wheel. Is this something that either one of you has studied, this part of astrology, or is this part new to you too?
I have studied this before.
Okay. And do you have it more or less memorized yet, or?
It would be more of a remembering because I've just kind of come away from it. I was very acclimated with the modes for a good long while. So it's just remembering it. And remembering it like in the example of, I mean, I remembered, like you said, fix is fixed, you know, stable. Cardinal is the, you know, like you said, the spark, and then mutable is changeable. So I have that pretty much memorized.
Okay.
But the example that you gave with the flame, like, well, the spark, yes, the solid flame, yes, and then like kind of a wavering flame. I'm like, oh, those are great visual metaphors for me, so I could apply it to the earth and the air and the water signs as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you can each kind of play with these in your own imagination, what would they look like metaphorically? then yeah, that'd be great. And Lynn, have you memorized these? Do you know these?
These guys I'm pretty good with, and I remember pretty good, and yeah, so I feel pretty comfortable with them, and I liked your analogy with the fire, and yeah, I find it's kind of like a description on the element, and it's kind of like what kind of edge does it have, you know, like if it's starting something up, it's holding something, or it's adapting to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So that's yet another way of looking at your charts. Are you not just primarily one of the elements, but you also want to know if you're primarily fixed, mutable, or cardinal. And I think we already kind of went through what fire's like, but since Aries is fire, since Mars in its primary expression is fiery, Mars co-rules Scorpio in traditional terms. So Mars even has a bit of a watery quality, but primarily it is fiery. So as we already started talking about, that it has its positive side, which it creates and transmutes, but of course it can become destructive. So especially since both of you and myself have strong Aries in our charts, which is what we're looking at this week, it is important to recognize the shadow aspect of fire and of Aries in particular. So, well, we'll get to what it might look like for each of you when I pull the charts back up. But just remind me to bring this back. Okay, come on.
And just for your knowledge, it's 6 o'clock right now.
6 o'clock. Are you serious? Oh my
I
God.
was reading your mind, or you were reading my mind.
Thank you. All right. So let's just, it's okay. So now we're just gonna go through, thank you for that. The descriptive pictures and stuff. So Mars and Aries fire, where do you need transformational alchemy in your life? So kind of like considering where you can apply this in your life this week, and some more questions for you. If this sign is about creative energy, then we can ask ourselves this week, what stirs my passions? How in touch am I with my creativity? And am I ready to take courage and spring into action? And courage, the root of that word is from the Old French, which means to come from the heart, right? So it's literally to take heart. Where am I ready to take my heart? You know, what is it that my heart, and this applies ideally to fire in general, to Aries, of course, but it also could apply, Ayana, you're the one with the Leo rising, I think, right? Yes.
Correct.
So that's a double place for you to consider this idea of courage in the heart. So we already know that Aries rules the spring equinox. So that's why there's this idea of springing into action. So, you know, definitely, what are you ready to start this year? So this kind of goes into what we discussed earlier, and I think that Lynn, you mentioned last week that you were at a point where you were wanting to shift gears in a creative fashion in something. So this is why this particular archetype is going to be really important for you at this time. Whoops, I skipped something there. Uh-oh. I don't know what happened, but anyways, the archetype of the hero. So again, just the celestial ram has to do with the hero's journey. You're both familiar, I'm sure, with the idea of the hero's journey. You nod your heads if so or no, if not.
I no, I heard of it before. I think I'm confusing it with the Fool's Journey and like tarot. So.
Yeah, that's very similar. Very similar. The fool has his own journey, very much the hero.
Okay.
Lynn, you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero journey?
I've heard a bit about it. I couldn't recite much about it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
I need to make a note. I don't have my notebook. Will one of you message me, email me, and say, Sylvia, post about the hero's journey? Because I think that it could be significant for you guys. Of course, you know the ram, and what do rams do? They
Charge.
charge. Yep. Yep.
Or butt heads.
They butt heads. Head butt. Absolutely. And when they're young, that's when they use uh the headbutting fighting thing to be able to say this is my territory, so just aspects of the animal itself which we can learn from. Oh, and by the way, well, no, I'll get to another slide. So the ruling planet for Aries, as we know, is Mars. Vitality, direction, courage, action, assertion, and aggression. And aggression could be considered positive in some circumstances when you're defending yourself, from somebody else's aggression. And of course, there's when you're attacking, that aggression is not necessarily good. But these are all qualities that we need to consider in terms of where each of your Mars is positioned in your charts. Both have Mars and Aries, so there's that pure energy that you get to work with, which is exciting. At the same time, this is why I mentioned a minute ago that it's important to note the shadow side. So how well versed are you with when you're feeling that somebody's pressed a button that is a sore point and is it a healthy anger that you feel, or does it turn into an all-out war, or how you're not teenagers, right? So hopefully you've learned to work with the shadow. So if either one of you or both of you feel comfortable sharing anything regarding how you may have experienced your Mars and Aries in your life in your younger years versus older, this could be a teaching moment.
I recognize, and I've been told that I was definitely more fiery in my outward expression. And I think also I could say that I probably was like more reactive versus choosing to respond. So there was, when I was younger, there was like an unrefined, fiery, peppery, more explosive energy than what there is now.
I love the way you explain that. Oh, that was beautiful. Oops. That was beautiful. Thanks, Ayana.
Yeah, I agree. I like the whole unrefined bit. I find I work with that even now. That because it's Aries, to me it's like instinctual and it's new. And so it's not refined, and it's like you're trying to kind of sort of be presentable about it, right? And become more aware as I've gotten older that, oh, I didn't realize it looked so rough around the edges all the time. So I mean, from my point of view as a younger person, a child, I would not have been as expressive with my Mars. But then when I think of the Saturn sitting right beside it, well, maybe that's, kind of describes the dilemma, even though from time to time it would let loose and it would kind of pop out, despite my best efforts to maybe not do something or whatever. And then as I've gotten older, I've had to work on how do I express it. And if you really push that button, I thought it was funny when you said about pushing a button, because I think it was a couple years ago, somebody pushed my button, and I think it was like the straw on the camel's back there. Like it was just the last, and I was just like, I blew up, and like I never blow up. Not like that anyway. So in a way it was like so funny, right? Because people would be like, oh my God. Yeah. Like you never get mad like that. Like never. Like, and I was so frustrated and so mad. And anyways, that's my little blip on like it came out. And I mean, I don't think I was really proud of the moment per se, because you're not trying to show off how badly you can behave or whatever, but sometimes, everybody has a moment, move on or whatever. And I'm going to go with Ayana's, like trying to refine how it's put out there, even now.
Yes, and with that much Mars energy, yeah, it's normal for it to come out in unexpected ways, particularly if we have been holding it back. As you brought up, if you have Saturn closely conjuncted or could be squaring or quincunx in other people's charts, then it's putting on the brakes on that Martian, which is good depending on the circumstances. So thank you both for sharing your personal experiences on that. The astronomical information here, it's just boring left brain stuff, but it is still important because it gives us an idea of some of the metaphorical meanings. So it is a red planet, so there's that passion or anger. It has volcanoes, like what you were just sharing, Lynn, about just came kind of come up suddenly. There are different aspects, and of course there's the two moons and yada yada. So the important thing for us is that the astrological cycle is 2 years. So where we have a solar return, our sun's birthday is 1 year, 365 days more or less. Our lunar return is about 20 every 28 days. The Mars birthday is every 2 years, give or take a couple months, depending on if there are any retrogrades in its cycle. And so you will want to plot, if you're concerned about career, then this is something worth plotting, is getting the ephemeris and noting when the transit of Mars returned to the exact place it was when you were born. I'll come back to that in a minute too. Once again, in medical holistic astrology, it's important to note, if you're working on anything with this archetype, it rules the head and the face in particular. Last week we talked about the eyes and the vision. Also the brain, now that I remember, I forgot to add that. The blood and the muscles. So when you think about exercise, for example, Mars has a lot to do with getting the blood pumping, right? Its partner, Venus, rules the veins, and Mars rules the blood moving through the veins. So there's that polarity, that opposition working together, the veins and the blood. And I was saying, getting the blood pumping when you're exercising, or the blood rushed to my face. I was so angry, the blood flushed my face and I turned red like a tomato. It's all literal astrology. So I always also consider in medical astrology, if you're dealing with particular things related to this, it's just good to know. Like maybe if a person that you're working with is having blood issues, I have something called polycythemia, too many red blood cells, and I've yet to figure all of it out, but I know that it's related to this archetype because of its rulership over blood. And anyways, it's yet another one of those studies that you in astrology that you can go really, really deep. All right, so we're back to the polarity. I said I was going to tell, the vein and the veins and the blood. So as you work with your Aries planets, look to the opposite point in Libra to see if you have anything. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. You can still ask yourself, well, what can I learn from the opposite planet? The opposite sign, in order to help me balance out maybe some of the over the top Aries energies. Does that make sense? And it is what I call the path of identity and relationship. Aries says, I am me, and Libra says, I am me through you. And together they have to learn that relationship dance. So Aries is me first, and Libra says, let's do it together. Aries is, I mean, this is a major issue that I've had with my husband for, we've been together 20 years. He has the South Node in Aries and the North Node in Libra. He used to keep things to himself about money problems and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you need to talk. Tell me when it's happening. So there's this need for Libra to teach Aries about partnership instead of carrying that warrior load all by itself. So yeah, so definitely the idea of the mirror and of us versus it's just you is important. So I said I'd come back to the idea of the animal. So the Aries glyph, of course, you know, is this thing that looks like a fountain, but it's a couple different things. It's the horns on the ram, right? It looks just like that. And it's also this, right? It's in our face. It just goes up the chin, the nose, and over the eyes. Simple little things like that. We already discussed about how it has to do with identity and individuation. And one of the main purposes for this archetype is new beginnings, to blaze a new trail, to just get out on the road and do stuff. And this is something that, oh, look, Celestial Archetypes class reminder. So again, the 3 fire signs have a lot to do with the idea of identity and of getting out there in the world. But Aries starts that movement forward. So we have the archetype of the pioneer for Aries, courageous, impulsive, innocent. We talked about when you were born, this idea of the baby. Humor and just a sense of laughter and playfulness. Vitality because of Mars. Enthusiasm, aggression, inspiration, creative, active, driven, competitive, idealistic, a warrior, warrioress, independence, childlike, excitement, adventurous, and leadership qualities. But its leadership qualities are short in its span. Unlike, let's say, Leo. Leo is fixed fire versus Aries being cardinal fire. So Aries will get the ball rolling as, you know, in that sense, pioneering, but the real leader in the fire signs is Leo because it is fixed. It will hold steady, that flame. I am is the main theme. And let's see, was there anything? Oh, I forgot about the supernal glands, and the adrenal glands are also ruled by this. And the ram, the dragon, and the sheep are the animals associated with it. I'll get into the crystals in a second. I actually have an example. So my favorite quote is from Anais Nin: life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. So when you're looking at your own charts this week, see if you can find a quote that captures the essence of how you experience, let's say, your Mars in Aries. So these are the Mars keywords now. It is, again, archetype of the warrior, energy, drive, sexual expression, power, direction, desire, personal will, forward moving motion, blood and the color red, assertion, lust, and self-preservation. I mean, what does a warrior do? Ideally, the conscious warrior defends the family, defends the loved ones, the territory, the domain. And it is concerned with life preservation. Shadow is anger, war, and blind rage, as well as fighting for the sake of fighting itself. So if any of these particular key themes resonates for you, write it down, journal on it. Ask yourself if there's any healing that needs to take place around any of these themes, whether the Aries keywords, Mars, or the first house. Do you guys need me to leave this one up for a second?
No.
Okay. And then the Ascendant, the mask we wear. I guess I covered this. Our outer personality, our self-expression, our face, how we present ourselves to the world. Hello world, this is me. And as I already mentioned 1,000 times, indicator of the soul's purpose. Now, the Ascendant is different from actual first house because, it's a whole house versus just the Ascendant. And I'm sure you've noticed that a single house can have 2 or 1 or even sometimes 3 signs within it. I believe Lynn has interceptions, so you're gonna find that. Now, when I pull your chart up again, I'll look at that again. Are you both familiar with interceptions?
Don't think so.
I am to a degree, a little bit.
Okay, I'll bring it up then when we get to the charts. So first house keywords: the body, beginnings, new cycle, personality, outer reflection, birth, where identity is formed, self-image, individuality, and early childhood environment into which you were born, and your name. Your name is in the first house. Your legacy, for which you will be remembered, is the 10th house, midheaven, as a point of comparison. What is important here for me to mention as well is that early childhood is actually the first, the second, and the third houses. Okay. So if there's any healing work that needs to be done around your early childhood environment, that might be a place to look, and actually even goes a little bit into the fourth, since that's a family of origin as well. Yeah, I'll always have this one. I just love this picture. Isn't that adorable?
It's cute.
Oh, just the idea of baby again. And, how are we born? Usually most babies are born head first, right? Through the womb. So there's another way that it represents that passion for coming into life and incarnation and just experiencing everything that life has to offer us, good or bad. Just pictures of different warrior, like, and I need to update some of these slides, but you have different warrior type of setups, and there's protective gear, and there's the craziness of the battlefield, and what things can you think of that you can correlate the warrior and transpose it to your work or your career? Any insights into that? How you can extrapolate it?
For me, all that's coming to mind is just the idea of, I feel in a sense, it's like the need to do battle or prepare for battle at any moment. So I don't know if it's because of the urgency of the situations that arise, because it's a hospital, it's a lab, so, you have stat, you have urgent. And so I feel there's that sense of be ready to do battle, just like that.
That's great. Yeah. And labs, blood work, there's Mars right there. Yeah. Emergency. That's that's a great word for in here. Ayana, anything for you come up on that?
I was just thinking more so to initiate, like the thing about initiating and taking to take initiative, like to, you know, to be self-directed. That's all that's coming up for me.
Self-directed. Yeah. You know, and there's also within career, there's the idea of that warriors, you know, soldiers have to take orders from the higher ups, from the generals. And so there's that idea as well that can be extrapolated. Do you have to take orders from somebody that's above you? Or are you the one that gives the orders? You know, are you, like you said, Ayanna, the self-direction, and you're your own boss, say, for example. And then there's the idea of the competition when it's a big corporation and everybody's vying for the same new role in a company or something like that, or actors and actresses that compete for a big movie role. So there's lots of different places that this shows up that could be extrapolated. It's not just war itself and soldiers itself, but we do this every day in our everyday lives.
Something just popped up in my head when you said something about competing. So I don't know, it's so I would think kind of like the sperm are Aries like, because they are, you know, journeying and trying to get to the egg first and that sort of a thing.
Absolutely. And thank you. I totally forgot that one. That should have been on the glyph.
It
The
just
Mars
popped up.
glyph. Yes. Thank you. If you look at the Mars glyph, it insinuates the sperm going into the egg. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that. And only one's going to make it, you know, only one. Brilliant. Yes. So Mars in particular has a lot to do with the drive to procreate. And this also has to do with that survival instinct. So whereas archetype number 1 has to do with that lust, that passion that is purely sexual and procreative in nature, its opposite, Venus and Libra in the 7th house of relationship, is more about love, you know, instead of sexual love. It is, so there's this interesting dance between the two in this polarity. So Mars and Venus are famous lovers. And I don't know if are you guys familiar with the mythology? Do you want me to give you the quick version of it?
I think I've seen it like in some of like other like astrology and or zodiac books, but I would love for you to give us the Silvia version of it.
Yeah. I vote for that.
Okay. Just really quick, and it's not clear. But so Venus, or Aphrodite, Venus was married, a married goddess to Hephaestus, who was basically Hephaestus and Vulcan are one and the same. He was the one that took care of the foundry, the steel, the production of battle gear and swords and beautiful the armory. So he was an ugly being, and he was not, these are strange words, whatever, they may or may not be politically correct, but crippled in some way. I don't know if it was one leg was shorter than the other, I don't recall, but he just wasn't a handsome or desirable being. And Venus was very much a goddess of, you know, she was beautiful, the goddess of beauty, right, and love. And she fell in love with Aries, who himself was quite attractive and virile and, you know, all that, and super sexual, unlike her husband. So they had an affair. And her husband, Hephaestus, found out and created this very, very fine mesh that was like a sheet. And he put it up hidden inside canopy, as a sort of a canopy over the bed or whatever, where Venus and Aries or Aries, Mars, would meet to make love, have sex for him, make love for her, you know. And when they came together, then he dropped that steel mesh on them and caught them red-handed in the act and just embarrassed the crap out of them. And that was that.
I
So
love it. I love it.
so I don't remember really much of it other than that. It's been a long time since I've thought about it. But yeah, there's this whole thing about illicit relationships that goes with all of these gods and goddesses, especially with these two. And they did have, who was their baby? I think it was Cupid. I believe it was Cupid. They had offspring. As a matter of fact, I think it was more than just one. Mars and Venus. So yeah, so just keep in mind that there's sexual procreative drive from the Mars and Aries end of it. But for Venus, it is not sexual. It is a romantic love. So this is that union that they have. Okay. And again, just back to the idea of new beginnings, birthing, and creation. And I love that one famous, what do you call it, fresco of God and Adam, that moment of creation, so to speak. And of course, the baby and coming out, being born out of the oneness. We already talked about how this archetype starts off the entire seasonal year with the spring equinox. And Ayana, you mentioned the Fool. Even though traditionally the tarot card that is associated with Mars is the Emperor, and rightly so, there's still an aspect of the Fool, which, side note, is associated with the planet Uranus. There's still this idea of the hero's journey and the Fool as it embarks on his journey through, or her journey. This idea of innocence and trusting that, you know, God's got my back as I journey forward. So I believe that this image is very important for this archetype. Demetra George, whose book I have suggested that you get, Astrology for Yourself. She says that Aries is my need to be independent and develop self-awareness. So, is the animation showing there?
Yes, and I can identify with that 100%. I was coloring at my job the other day. It was like downtime, and I printed pages and I had like my colored pencils. I was very into it.
Yeah, I was coloring this weekend too, actually.
There you go, tapping into that Aries drive, creativity. And it's more than that. It's like this little kid made, the look on his face is like I feel like he was told by his teacher, sit down and get to doing what I just told you, when all he wants to do is go outside and play on the monkey bars or go run around or do whatever. You know, it's like, okay, fine, I will do what you say. You know. So there's this idea again of like, I want to do things my way, you know, and that's definitely an aspect that we have to be aware of ourselves, that if we feel that independent urge in our Aries areas or in our first house or wherever Mars is, and that brings us to the Mars cycle and the Mars return. So you have what are called, you both have kids. So you remember the terrible twos?
That started way before too, but yes.
Some kids. So the terrible twos comes to us courtesy of the Mars cycle. So when a child turns 2, it is the very first Mars return. And so therefore those temper tantrums, those, no, I'm not going to do it your way. I was just watching on Facebook some of, how it shows little short videos. And there was this one that was a compilation on a bunch of little toddlers. And the mother's like, no, no. And she goes, she starts crying, and the next kid does the same. And there was like 3 of them, the same thing. They can't handle no. So maybe ask ourselves, where in my life do I rebel against being told no? Where in my life have I been conditioned to accept somebody else's authority against my own authentic self-expression? That's a good one right there. Somebody write it down for me. because a lot of the times that was squashed. Our creativity was squashed when we were in that very creative Martian cycle of our lives. 2 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, and by 7, that's usually squashed by that first Saturn square. So look at those Aries or Mars or even your ascendant and first house points and consider what I just said, but also consider, do I need to make some changes, take some Mars action towards becoming more independent in this area of my life? And then not just in terms of your creativity as a child, but I'm glad to hear you both colored this weekend, but also career. Since Mars is one of the career planets, Saturn is the bigger one. I think I mentioned this last week. Then again, go back to plot any major, those years where you had major shifts in your career. And we can see if it coincides with either a Mars return or a full phase Mars transit. I mean, it could also be, if it's a much bigger one, maybe it's related to the Saturn cycle in your charts, but you can look into this. And at the very least, we can look into when your next Mars cycle, Mars return is coming up, so that if you want to make a change, or if you want to start something new, creative or career-wise, you can start working towards setting yourself up for whenever that date is going to happen.
I think it's soon for both of us, actually, because we both have Mars and Aries, right? So I think it's coming up.
Yeah,
I can't say when, but I think it's coming up.
Hold on. Mars is in at the tail end of Aquarius, and yes, you are absolutely right. And I can look it up in the ephemeris, and give you the exact date for both of you, because yes, that is important. So you're basically at the end of your previous Saturn cycle, both of you. So if you need to bring anything to closure in terms of your career or your creativity, or whatever else may be going on with Mars related stuff, and we just talked about sexual relations and stuff like that, then that could be in there too. So basically what we're doing is, Mars asks, what direction will I take with my creative power, right? So if we're talking about you're both getting ready to start a new Mars 2-year cycle within the next couple of months, few months, then this is your opportunity to be consciously co-creative with the universe, instead of allowing life to just kind of karma or whatever kind of lead you in whatever which way. So yeah, so definitely ask yourself this question as you bring the current cycle to closure. Where are you going to go next? All right, so we talked about this already. The new year. The first house is the house of creative self-expression because it's being the embodiment of that divine spark. So I don't know if you can read this, but this says, how does one become a butterfly? She asked. You must want to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. So this goes right back to the very first question, who am I and why am I here and now? That's going to be the biggie one from the point of view of your rising or ascendant and the planet that rules it. So Leo and the sun for Ayana, Cancer and the moon for Lynn. That's your biggest part of the homework. Oh, I already gave you this one. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. So because of the fact that you're coming into your new Mars return cycle, you've got new juicy energy that's getting ready to propel you, would be the word, propel you forward. So if that was a picture of you, what's the mountain and what's in the valley? What's right in front of you that you are going to move towards? First house and ascendant, I go back. Who am I? We already spoke about this identity. So again, the true soul purpose self versus the mask and or masks plural that you wear. What's the filter and what's behind the mask? So if you're not intimately familiar yet with your rising sign and its ruling planet, this week, that's your home play. Mars is chi and movement and yang energy and the activation of life force energy. And then if you're going to do any kind of altar sacred space, and thank you, Lynn, for sharing yours in the group. Use all the symbols that we've been looking at, fire and whatever resonates for you for the signs. Whatever I have on that old table of mine, that was for the Cancer lunar month, I think. Yeah, I see seashells in the moon. That's an old picture. Wow. All right, stones, metals, etc. Diamond, bloodstone, and carnelian. I'm wearing carnelian today. I love that stone. And I have two carnelian crystal skull. Oh man, I should have brought it out for you guys.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. I love them too. I have a few of my own too. Yeah, beautiful,
You got to share a picture of that.
Not a skull, mind you. Just
Huh?
I don't have the skull or whatever. Just some carnelian stones. Yeah.
Yeah, put it on your altar then.
Okay.
Iron and steel. Yep. So, and then the associated oil, essential oil, which we talked about last year, and I'm going to put some on right now, is rosemary. So rosemary thrives in a strong woman's garden, strengthens the hair follicle, promotes hair growth, stops premature graying. Great remedy for dry, flaky scalp, prevents hair loss and dandruff. Excellent for skin problems such as acne and eczema. An energizing oil. It helps restore mental alertness, relieves fatigue and stiff muscles. So it helps to wake us up, so if students use blends that include rosemary oil when they have to study, because it focuses the brain, the mind on what's at hand. And it's super hardy, it survives the elements. Just like we said that this archetype is all about survival instinct. So and muscle repair. Here we have the archetype that, Mars rules the muscles, we said. Well, rosemary repairs the muscles. Do you guys work with essential oils at all?
Not
Yes.
Good, Ayana. And yes, Lynn, start with this one. Rosemary is not expensive. The fact that it grows wildly, thank goodness it's one of those that's not expensive at all. And I would encourage getting organic, or at the very least wild, um, not the bad stuff that's been sprayed. Or, like I said, go see, what you can do is also take your shampoo and pour a few drops of rosemary oil in it and
Mhm.
do that.
And even the actual herb, like if you get it from the grocery store, if somewhere nearby, like the library nearby has a rose bush. Rose tree bush, if you will. What am I saying? Rosemary
Rosemary.
bush. Yes. I don't even think people realize that it's that, but I recognize it immediately, and I always go and I like, it's fat and everything. So I'll go and like talk to it and then like rub on it and smell my hands, and
Yeah.
no one's looking, I'll do a little clipping and be like, thank you. And I'll leave a piece of my hair for reciprocity,
Yes.
So, but that I was going to say, if you don't have access to the essential oil, if you have access to the actual fresh rosemary, you just rub it and it'll give its, scent strong.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely right on. So find music. Here are just a few. So these are old suggestions, but oh, very strange. I can't hear. Can you guys hear it?
Yes.
You hear that climatic thing? I mean, talk about the sperm and
Definitely. And warrior energy. Definitely.
yeah, it's like that whole woo, there's the climax right there. So that's Gustav Holst, one of the many songs created for the planets. And then there are other ones. So these are just a few that I've always liked over the years, either because of the lyrics or no, it's usually there's drums, tribal. This is why I have African and Native American and belly dancing. It's there's just this whole just I don't even have the words. The pictures hopefully will kind of give you a sense of it. And for the first time, I actually saw fire. Wait a minute, was it? Yeah, by the Ohio Players. I guess this would have been, they were from the 70s. And I've never seen them live or their videos. And I've never actually even seen all of the lyrics. I've always just loved the music. It's very fiery. Oh my God. It absolutely, except with one word that I didn't like them using, it is absolutely Aries and Mars, 100%. And I just got triggered by my husband's text. Wait. Um, my Mars is in Scorpio. Okay, so just find some kind of Martian music or Aryan music that feels passionate, motivating, that gets your blood pumping, that gets your juices flowing, that feels like this volcanic eruption, and dance to it, move to it. Remember, we're talking about movement. So I invite you to move with it. I don't want you to just sit there and, listen to it. Let it be something that literally moves you. It doesn't have to be any of mine. If we were together in person, I would have food here, I'd have the oils here, and I'd have us all getting up and dancing to all of this stuff during break. So I need you guys to do that for yourselves. And when you do pick one, at least one, share it in the group which one you picked. Just tell me what it is from YouTube.
Okay.
And or put a link on there, please. We can inspire each other. And then food, you've got to eat something that's spicy, or if you have digestive issues, like I do, you can either suffer the consequences or enjoy it fully. So it doesn't have to be spicy. At the very least, make it be red. um you know Anything that you can think of, and any foods that come to mind for you that would fit this.
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti? Why spaghetti?
Well, because the sauce is red, like
Okay.
you have, um, and then too, like, I do like a little bit of pepper or red pepper or the chili flakes in moderation can be very, very good with spaghetti. But also like nachos with salsa. Like I love stuff like that. But I can't really eat really hot, mind you. I'm kind of like a moderate, very mild-ish, really. But that's what I think of for foods, yeah.
Okay, good. So pick one night or lunch and have that however you can.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ayana?
Um, I am definitely a peppery pot, garlic and ginger and all the hot foods. Naturally, I think I might have even burnt my system out doing it too much, not doing it in regulation. Like in my 20s, 30s, I think I might have burnt myself out. Um, but I think I have I have some I have this stuff in my house all the time, but I was gonna say chai, like masala chai, because
Yeah.
it's warming. This teas is like has all of the cinnamon and the ginger and the cart and like warming spices.
Hmm.
So the color is not there. It's not red, but it's definitely warming, and it will warms you from the inside out.
Absolutely.
So
Yes, absolutely. The chai, and absolutely. Okay, so that's part of your home play.
yeah.
The yoga pose is the warrior pose, which is an easy one to do. Do either of you do yoga or anything like this?
Yes, I've reintroduced myself to yoga in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so be sure to do the warrior pose at
Okay.
some point. And you, Lynn, have you done any?
I've done some, but I've kind of gotten away from it. I'm not doing it quite as much, but I've done it and actually enjoyed it. Actually, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so um, I really would like for the both of you to bring it home into your bodies. So that's why doing the music and is getting it through your hearing. The food is activating the archetypes through your taste. Of course, something like yoga, the pose itself is using your whole body. So bring in the senses as much as you can, particularly with this first one, um, because everything else comes out of this one. Remember, you're initiating something new in your life. Even if you've studied astrology before, this is now bringing it into your full experience. I apologize, but it looks like the symbols that I had for Aries and Mars disappeared. So my disclaimer for the shadow is not to take anything personally if this is a sign that's heavy duty in your charts, as it is for all three of us. We have to own our shadow so that we can find the freedom to express the light side once we own and heal the shadow aspect, or at the very least bring it into balance. So you're going to be looking at not just all the good stuff of Aries and Mars and the Ascendant, but you're going to also consider the shadow, some of which we already discussed, such as, anger and arguments and impatience and being rash, impulsive, self-centered, temper tantrums, overpowering, speed demon, easily bored, bully, overbearing, careless, irresponsible, reckless, coarse, directionless, burnout, adrenaline junkie, and incompletions, which brings up another point. The cardinal signs, all of them, but especially fire, cardinal Aries, being that they get things going and started, is likely to have a lot of incompletions. It starts the energy, but it doesn't finish things. I'm the queen of having a zillion projects because I've got that Saturn in Aries, but I have a zillion projects that are on, hold, started but not completed. So if you have any incompletions, creative incompletions, pick one and finish it. Pick one and finish it. Consider this, because I think that, at least for me, that's a biggie. So yeah, just consider which one of these is something that you want to work with.
If you are the queen of that, then I am the Duchess, because I too suffer from the same thing. I'm a creative machine. I have so many great, I just keep producing them. And I'll start some, and I'll start some, and I'll start some. But then I'm like, oh, if I could just bring them to completion. Yeah. So a friend of mine called me, she's like, Ayana, you're just like a little pollinator going from one flower to the next, getting the nectar. And I was just like, I am a pollinator.
Yep, same. And that's the cardinal aspect. It's the Aries aspect, the Mars aspect. There might be some Gemini in there too in your case. I don't know, I haven't looked. But yeah. So why don't we each pick? Let's do this. From all these shadow, pick one of these that that you commit to healing and working with, either during this week or it could be over the course of the entire course. And we hold each other accountable in the group.
So one that's in the two little boxes, one of the things.
Sure.
Well, I'm definitely going to say incompletions, because that's what it makes me, if I think about it too much, it makes me feel very heavy, and like, I will begin to beat myself up. So
pick one. Pick one. Me too. It's called overwhelm, and then nothing gets done. So pick one, and you're gonna share about it in the group. You'll journal on your own, and you'll share a little bit about it. But can you tell me if you have one particular project or idea or something that you want to bring to completion? We'll just support each other.
I think about what it is really quickly. Well, I don't know if it's getting my, I don't know if that's a project. It's getting my all of my things in orders for my LLC for my herbal tea business. It's easy enough. It's steps that I have to take to do it, and just get it done. So I'll say that one.
Okay. And you're gonna do that this week or before the course ends?
I'll work on it this week, because it's easy enough steps to take. So yes,
Okay.
I'll do it this week.
All right. So please just take a few minutes to post it in the group. Remember, it's just the three of us.
Yes.
And we'll hold you to it. Okay. We'll
Okay.
witness you on it.
Okay.
Great. And Lynn?
I can relate to what you are both saying about the incompletions. I know, as I was just looking at it before you said pick something out, I thought that the one that I find is kind of bothering me right now is the directionless. I feel I don't know, I don't know why exactly, but I feel like I'm trying to get better bearings on certain ways to go forward, and that one seemed to kind of pop out more, even though there's different things I can relate to. The impatience, maybe impulsive, even though I'm thinking I'm not that impulsive, but other people will go, you're, maybe jumping the gun on something. But the impatience can kind of get in there, but directionless, incompletions in the sense of maybe I'm a little bit slow getting stuff done, especially when I'm thinking of my work, paperwork wise. I get behind, but I'm forced to pick, I can do this or I can do this. So, but the one that stood out that kind of bothered me was directionless.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be one that kind of gets in and bugs you, and at the same time that you're going to feel like, wow, I did it, you know, because Aries loves a trophy. Aries loves to win. So it
Yeah.
has to also, when you think about, wow, I did it, that it feels good. So directionless, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, yeah. And so far, my big thing with when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking it's probably, let's say, an example would be to do this course, put the effort in, keep at it, keep working at things and, doing the log or the journal or like just to follow a path, right? Like just follow it through. And that would be one example. I'm not sure if something else would come up,
Mhm.
but I'm thinking like that would be one of the examples of just kind of doing the course, going over things, making notes, doing a log or a journal. And so right now that's my decision to pick that one.
Okay. So you are um following a specific direction, which in a way leads you to completion of
Yeah.
this course,
Yeah.
that it will bounce right back to, it will give you direction in something that you're discovering new, hopefully, about yourself, or giving direction to something you already know about yourself. I don't know, right? But it seems to me like those two sound like they're going hand in hand. But okay,
Yeah,
so
pretty much. Yeah, I agree.
find however you want to word it out, both of you, as an intention. I'm going to do the same thing myself and put it in there as an intention. That becomes an anchor point, okay, and something we can support each other. And yeah, I don't know. For me, it's going to be, I'm pretty sure, in completion. So completion of mine will be before the end of the course, to complete the clearing up of our house, decluttering and setting up the house such that we can list it for sale. So that'll be what I do, because I have so many projects that pull me away, creative stuff, that I don't finish those. And then I also don't finish house related stuff that needs to be done. All right. Okay. So I think that's going to be a good one for everybody. Whoops. Oh, we already talked about that. All right. I'm going to post this in the group. These are you can do them all, or you can do them, pick the ones that resonate the most at this time. You can save them for later. These are the self-knowledge questions. Now, you can answer the questions either from the perspective of whatever planets you have in Aries, or from the perspective of your natal Mars by sign and position, or just in general. And then when you read it back, see if it mirrors back to you whatever is related in your chart. Make sense? So
Yeah.
what am I passionate about? What am I angry about? What would I fight for? What are my buttons that people press and anger me? What are my hot spots that lovers reach and turn me on? What do I desire the most in a mate? Now remember, this is about desire, not love. The love piece, the romantic piece, is opposite. What do I choose to direct life force energy into as part of my career? So all those pertain to Aries and Mars. Pertaining to the first house and the ascendant, what physical activity do I prefer for exercising my body? Do it this week. Do I remember my birth experience? If still incarnate, does my mother? Do I remember being loved and nurtured right after birth? Do I need to heal the energy around my birth into this lifetime? Look into a full-length mirror at home, stand naked and alone, lovingly appreciate each part of your physical body and tell yourself, I am that I am. How many masks do I wear and when do I wear them? Do I enjoy expressing myself to the world? And announce out loud, this one as often as you can, especially actually in the mirror, and maybe to other people. Here I am, world. I'll post this slide in the group for sure so that you guys don't have to write them all down. But just make note of the ones that seem to resonate the most for you at this time. Any questions on that one? Any questions on the questions? Now, this is from my moon coaching. These are the what I call the moon mantras. And I figured I'd put this up because these also were written with Aries in mind and may give you an additional, well, they should give you an additional sense of the energies for this archetype. So I'll post this one. And of course, my suggestion is to pick one that works during the Aries new moon coming up, an eclipse, but you could just do it this week as well. If there's one that really resonates and you want to look in the mirror and repeat, aside from I am that I am. Oh, darn, come back. So we have identified where Aries is in your astrological chart. And the house that Aries rules. We've identified the planets in each of your charts in Aries and its sign and its house. We've identified the sign ruling your first house and Ascendant, of course, as well as Mars. So, you know, make sure you understand all of these points in terms of positioning. And the intention here is for you, through the exercises, through the journaling, through the fun stuff, as well as through the uncomfortable stuff like the incompletions and directionless dialogue with this archetype within your consciousness, but also specifically with Aries in your body. Invoking fire first, do something on which you connect with your head and face. This is why I'm suggesting a mirror, because the mirror, you're looking at your face, but you're also calling in the energy of the opposite, the polarity point, Venus in the 7th house and Libra, and you're doing that dialogue. But you know, definitely do something with your head and face, and of course, journal, integrate, and share whatever you'd like to in the group. So the home play, I think we've already gone through all of these. You're going to do some kind of exercise, hopefully maybe the warrior pose. Consider the 2-year cycles in your career. Oh, and before I finish, I'll look at the exact date for each of you for your Mars return. Because of the sexual aspect of it, you know, you can either think back to the times that you were active or be active that way, whichever of the two. But there's something there that maybe is worth looking at. Same thing with the head, you know, where I see in your picture you have a ¿cómo se llama? What's it called? Turban? Ayana, in your case?
Yes, it's a head wrap, a gele, like a
Okay.
head.
So definitely something you could wear a hat. You just call attention to your head in some way.
Okay.
And of course, we already discussed how we're going to work with the shadow. if you, I think you said, I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff to do, but if you feel like it and you have it, I think, Ayana, you said you don't have it. So what I'm gonna do is take a picture of the page that has Mars. And Lynn, you have the book you said in digital form. So page 62 and 63, which is Mars.
Okay.
Okay. I'll have you do that. I'll post it in the group. If for any reason by Tuesday I haven't, what's today, Sunday? No, I've got to do this by tomorrow so that you guys will have it. Yeah. All right, and we did show and tell last week, but if you want to share anything new, feel free to do it now. Oh, look at my old house. See, in person, I create a wheel on the floor and everybody brings their stuff and oh, I miss my old house. Anyways, that was in Roswell, Georgia. Now we're in Canton, Georgia. Do either one of you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
I just have, I need to do my postings in the group. Small confession, I don't know how to do that. And I think
Okay.
I'm still, like, I'm in the group, like I have it pulled up, but I don't know how to navigate it because if I go, I should be on a different device in this one so I could say what I'm doing. I'm in the group. I think it says Celestial Archetypes Forum, right? Private group for the students. And then there's several different things, starting with introduce yourself, going all the way down to home, play, show and tell, right?
Right. So you can
And then,
pick any one of those.
okay. And then I can pick any one of those. And then I would do create a post to upload whatever I have to show.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, and Lynn, now that Ayana mentioned the group, I think I saw that you sent me a request to join one of my other sites. That's a different program altogether. So stay in Celestial Archetypes.
Yeah, it could be, I clicked around a few different places, God knows, and yeah. So yeah, I'm good. That's okay.
Okay. All right. So you're both good in the group then, Ayana, you're good on there?
Yes, I am now. And then I have one other question about, it was the last slide. I was trying to click the microphone, but I wound up clicking like looks like a drawing button, and then that did something to the screen. I couldn't say anything.
This one?
The mask part. How do you determine if you wear a mask or how you wear a mask? How does one determine that?
So you act differently with different people, or you respond
Oh.
differently with different people, maybe?
Oh, okay. I don't,
That's
but okay.
one quick way of noticing.
Got it.
So we could say mask, we can say we wear different hats.
So, but like literally it's a different from what your norm is or something?
Right. So your innermost self is the one that we want to always be in touch with, be self-aware at that level. But we don't always share our true innermost self with everybody or in every situation.
Okay.
So it's we can actually, hold on, let me get out of this. Tell me if you're still able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Oh, actually, no, let me go back to what I can do is probably go back to the slide with your charts. But don't let me leave, let's not leave without the dates.
Okay.
Okay, so let me now make it big again. All right, so here's the thing with astrology, that what we're doing is we're analyzing, breaking down the totality of your being into sort of 12 different parts. So we're dividing you up for the purposes of being able to study portions of your psyche, right?
Okay.
So to answer who is our true self, we kind of have to look at ourselves holistically, which means a whole wheel, everything simultaneously. But no one really lives that way because we do hold parts of ourselves back, and because maybe to live in expressing the totality of who we are. See, this is a philosophical thing. Is it even possible?
Mhm.
Because we normally live our lives on that periphery when we might be, let's say, your moon in Libra in the third house. Maybe you're communicating your emotions in a way that is with the people in your immediate environment, surroundings, third house, uh, in a way that's objective, and you're maybe pacifist, or maybe you're non-committal, pacifist on the one hand, mediator on the other hand, non-committal and wishy-washy on the other hand, when it comes to really expressing how you feel inside with people in your immediate circumstances.
Got it.
But then let's say with somebody else, with all that juicy Mars Venus conjunction in Aries, you're super directed, you're super motivated and very passionate, the exact opposite qualities of Libra. So how do you integrate those two very different energies, the volatility of that Martian side with that, maybe I'll just put my foot out there, but not the whole of me, of Libra? How do you read those and express them all at the same time, and then bring this and then weave this and weave that, So in terms of answering your question, how do you determine the masks you wear? Start off by just looking at the qualities of Leo.
Okay.
Okay. And see if you can pinpoint circumstances and or people and or situations where you are more Leo in your expression versus the rest of it, including your Taurus nature.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that answers it. So in other words, I'm asking you to do your own
Like analysis.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, rather than me tell you, because you each know yourself best. But do you know enough about Leo already, or should I start posting keywords for the specific signs for each of you, maybe?
I know quite a bit about Leo from like firsthand experience, and I'm raising a Leo child and everything else. But I know quite a bit about Leo, and I know quite a bit about the other signs too. I guess I was just trying to see a lot before I derail us too far. I don't feel like I wear a mask, and I also haven't ever necessarily heard feedback that, I am different in different settings. But I was thinking like, I don't know, maybe I need to be. Maybe I need to wear a mask in different settings, and not to show up as I am, with my children, with the rest of the world, with coworkers, with like I'm the same me. That's so I was just trying to see like maybe there is some invisible mask that I don't know about, but I don't think that is the case. But
so let me give you a different word to use instead of mask.
Okay.
That's one waves of viewing the ascendant. The other one is, as I said, a filter or like that stained glass window, that coloring, or I had used the word flavoring for the
Flavoring.
decans, and you seem to respond to that one in a positive way. So it's the Leo flavor,
Yes.
the Leo ascendant flavor that you give to your Taurian true self, Sun in Taurus. So
Yes.
maybe look at it as flavor. And remember, esoterically, you are supposed to, as part of your soul's purpose, embody the Leo energy. And in Lynn's case, embody the Cancer energy. So the mask isn't necessarily a negative or a positive. We can throw that term altogether out. And if you want to live more conscientiously, see it not as a mask, but know that it is actually the way you must embody your soul in
Got
order to achieve your purpose.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
That
So,
makes a lot of sense.
okay. And Lynn, did that make sense to you as well in terms of embodying your Cancer energy as opposed to the mask idea?
Well, I was taking the mask idea as just kind of like how the sign is expressed, like it has to take shape or a form of a kind, like it. So
Right.
I was going more with the idea that, you know, that for me, a Cancer ascendant, there, you know, the mask I'm wearing is the Cancer mask, as in that, like that's how I express myself or come across, right? So I was
Mhm.
I was okay with the mask idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So that done. Oh, yes, we're gonna look up let me was there anything I need to look at? I need to know 3 degrees Aries for Ayana and 7 degrees Aries. So remember this, 3 and 7. So I'm gonna
Okay.
close this down and open up and keep your fingers crossed that it will work when I try to open my program.
It will work. It's happening.
Yes, it is. I have maxed out the RAM or whatever it's called on my computer. So
Mm.
there's no space for programs to work. That's what
Oh,
I discovered is the problem. And I can't buy a new computer. And I ran out of space on my external hard drive too. All right, so Ayana, we were looking at the 3 degrees.
mm-hmm.
So let me go to Astro Clock. This is something I wanted to show you guys anyways. Oh wait, that's not, no, I want to do, yeah, that's what I want to do. Gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna end soon.
Don't hold it, Sylvia. Don't hold it.
I know. But we're almost done. Come on.
I can wait the few minutes that you need to take yourself off the camera to help your bladder.
I'm okay too if it's
All
if
right, then I think I will.
okay. Okay.
All right.
Not good. Love your body. Love your bladder. Love the
Yeah,
pelvic
I
floor.
gotta set the example, right? I can't get out of this chair. Why can't I get out of my chair?
This is cool though. Looks like software, Astro Clock or something, like to pull up the charts and stuff.
Well, it looks like it was a serious program, even though I'm thinking I don't know what it is exactly, but um it looks really nice. Like I've never seen it before, not this, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, a friend of mine who's had professional, like a professional natal chart reading, she described something similar, like where she was like, it's just like he was able to move the chart and then inlay this and then turn it around and turn the wheel. So I was like, oh, That's high tech. That sounds nice.
Yeah, very fancy.
Here I was just working with pencils and paper.
Oh, years ago, I learned to do it with pencils and paper. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
All right, I'm back. I can't, oh, here, portrait landscape. That's what it was. There we go. That's right. So what I'm gonna look, so here's, I want you to see this. So this is the astro clock. And if you look here, it says 7:24, 16 p.m., 19. So this is the actual movement of everything as it's happening right now. If we were to look on the eastern horizon, at least from the DC perspective, Washington, DC, we would see the sign, not constellation, the sign Libra on the horizon, and it's very beginning. And you see how everything is shifting. All the numbers. The sun just set. It's right beneath that horizon point, and the moon is up above at the noon or midheaven position. So she would be, if we were to go outside in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be slightly off depending upon your time zone, wherever you each are, right up ahead.
Okay.
So that would be true for the Eastern area anyways. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, where is it? Why is it not? Oh, there we are. I am going to look for Mars, Aries. What was it? 3 degrees and something
3.
minutes.
3 degrees. I only heard you say 3 degrees.
Okay, so
I
we'll
didn't hear
just
you say
go.
the minutes. Okay.
All right, pardon?
I said I didn't hear you say the minutes. I only heard you
Oh,
say
okay.
3 degrees.
All right, so it was so close. Where are you? All right, so 3 degrees. Mars will be there May 4th. 9:02. So sometime that day, May 4th. That's
Okay.
and then for Lynn, it will be May 9th when it reaches 7 degrees and change. So May 4 and so remember, May 4th and May 9th is the Mars return for each of you. That's the beginning of your new Mars 2-year cycle.
Okay.
That's basically your Mars birthday.
Thank you.
All right.
Got it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Was that it? I don't know. It's 7:30. We've been at it since 5:30. So almost 3 hours. Okay.
Yeah,
Boy,
that
I
was it.
really went over.
Covered everything.
Yeah. So anything else, you guys, just let me know in the group. Make it as deep as you want to go.
Okay.
You have my
Sounds good.
support. All right, guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. I'll see you next week for Taurus.
Thank you both. I'll see you next week. Mwah.
Yeah, great.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop recording.